Agriculture is the process of producing food, feed, fiber and many other desired products by the cultivation of certain plants and the raising of domesticated animals. The practice of agriculture is also known as farming, while scientists, inventors and others devoted to improving farming methods and implements are also said to be engaged in agriculture.
Only a few subjects in scientific history have piqued the interest of scientists and policymakers alike way climate change does right now. The purpose of this worldwide conference is to disseminate scholarly research and other activities that will help people better understand climate change and how to combat it.
In the Archean eon, a worldwide cloud of methane droplets engulfed the nascent Earth. Oxygen gas did not exist on Earth at the time. Compounds like water were the only sources of oxygen. Simple, non-oxygen dependent living cells were created by complex chemical interactions in the primeval oceans. Instead, they used sulfur and other elements to generate power. Andry Rajoelina, Madagascar's newly elected president, has been urged by scientists to take specific steps to slow biodiversity loss and put the island nation on a path toward long-term prosperity. Some of Madagascar's most significant protected areas for biodiversity have been devastated by illicit mining, logging, and harvesting of endangered animals for the pet trade in recent years.
Police with sniffer dogs and marksmen en routes patrolled the streets of Windsor as the city's security was stepped up. Police immediately captured a lone streaker who had caused any public concern or concern at all. Aboriginal people are thought to have settled in Australia as far back as 60,000 years ago, and artefacts from that time period have been found throughout Australia. At Sydney Cove in 1788, the first British convicts set foot on Australian soil.
Businesses are increasingly engaging with foreign clientele, necessitating a greater understanding of proper behavior while dealing with people from various cultures. With widespread misconceptions regarding time, greetings, and clothing rules, many businesses are now teaching their employees on what is acceptable and what is not when interacting with people from other cultures. Canadian, Japanese, and German scientists opted to dig more into some of these weapons. Their fascination in stinging species like coral and jellyfish led them to focus on predatory marine microorganisms known as dinoflagellates, which have the ballistic weapons you just saw.
In addition to the wheels and tracks, several parts contribute to the train's noise. Modern trains have been lowered to make it easier for passengers with limited mobility to board. Older trains had their air conditioning equipment under the carriage. Thus, air conditioning equipment have been relocated to the carriage's roof, where they contribute to the train's already excessive noise.
To get the most of your grocery store savings with food coupons, write a list of everything you need to buy. Coupons may be found in newspapers and publications as well as online. Then, categorize the coupons based on their expiration date or product type. When you get at the checkout counter, hand the coupons to the clerk.
Mega droughts are as severe as the greatest droughts of the 20th century, but they last far longer. A megadrought in the American Southwest would put enormous strain on the region's limited water supplies, making future hazards crucial to assess.
The National Portrait Gallery in London is now honouring photographer Sandra Lusarda's 50-year career. The 21 pictures on show portray notable literary, cinematic, and fashion icons from the early 1960s. In light of the recent acquisition of 40 of Lusarda's works by the National Portrait Gallery, a selection of the artist's photographs made between 1960 and 1964 will be on show there 2008. In addition to the commissioned formal portraits, there are images taken on the sets of movies and candid shots of the sitters taken in their own homes.
Glucose is the primary energy source for the human body. Carbohydrates in meals are digested and released into the circulation, releasing glucose into the body. In order to utilize glucose as a source of energy for cells, it must enter the body's tissues. In addition to being stored in the liver, extra glucose is turned to fat in the body.
As a public policy, a smoking ban involves criminal legislation and health regulations that prohibit smoking in particular public areas and workplaces. The term smoking is defined in a variety of ways in this piece of legislation. In the most restrictive definitions, smoking is defined as the act of inhaling any material derived from tobacco, whilst the most inclusive definition includes the mere possession of any lighted tobacco product.
Tourism is a difficult industry to measure since many firms that cater to tourists also provide services to the local population. As a result, estimating how much money is spent by tourists and how many jobs are created is difficult. Many people are familiar with jet streams, which are rivers of air that move between 20,000 and 45,000 feet across the Earth's atmosphere. Colder air is separated from warmer air by meteorological jet streams, which have winds that may exceed 200 miles per hour.
It's projected that, over the next 100 years, temperatures on Earth could rise an average of nearly 5 degrees Celsius. While some animals might be able to migrate north to escape the brunt of the heat, plants can't uproot themselves quite so easily. Researchers wondered whether the creatures that disperse plant seeds might be able to help.
NYC stands for New York City. Because of its size and international prominence, it is known as the Big Apple. The city is home to the Statue of Liberty, Wall Street, the New York Stock Exchange, the Empire State Building, and Broadway.
When the topic of upbringing came up at a dinner gathering, two sisters got into it. The older sister began to talk about how strict her parents were and how she was afraid of them. Her 2-year-old younger sister interjected in disbelief. "I don't know what you're on about." This is what she had to say, according to her. "Forgiving parents were the norm for us. I recall being free to do whatever I wanted, including staying up late and going to parties. How could you describe them as a strict group of people?
Our short-term memory is limited to 10,000 words. Ultraviolet light is invisible to the human eye. In the fourth dimension, we are unable to mentally spin an object. Free will and sentience, for example, are enigmas that we may never be able to resolve.